Hello everyone and welcome back to the Rookie Reporters YouTube channel. I'm Sophie and today I'm going to be talking you through everything that happened at the Monaco Grand Prix. Circuit de Monaco is a street track in the middle of Monte Carlo and it makes up 1/3 of the Triple Crown, which is the Monaco F1 Grand Prix, the Indy 500 and then the 24 Hours of Le Mans. So the track itself is 3.337 kilometers with its first race in 1950. The drivers raced 78 laps around the streets of Monaco, with the fastest lap being a 1 minute 12.909 by Lewis Hamilton in 2021. Okay, so coming into the weekend, a few contracts were extended, with one of them being Las Vegas extending their contract until 2037, and Charles Leclerc re-signing a new multi-year contract with Ferrari. And because it's Monaco, a load of liveries and new suits were released for this special weekend. Okay, so one of the first liveries to be announced was the McLaren one. Now, they were celebrating a special occasion, which was their 1000th Grand Prix. So they put their car in like an orange and black colour scheme for Monaco and Barcelona, and both of the drivers will be wearing black race suits on both weekends. They've also collaborated with Lego, with each driver making a half and half helmet design, with one half being their usual season helmet and then the other half being their 1000th Grand Prix helmet design. Now, the next special design is Charles Leclerc's race suit. Now, over the years of him being in F1, he's always had special helmets and race suits for this specific race as it's his home race. But this year, he had a white race suit with flashes of red dotted around for the Monaco flag. Now, Audi's livery was a tribute to a driver called Tazio Nuvolari, who is classed as one of the world's greatest ever drivers, and they changed their Audi red to like a really bright yellow. Now, Hulkenberg also contributed to this by having Nuvolari's signature yellow on his helmet this weekend, including some shots of his historic moments through his racing career. Now, the next livery was an interesting livery, and it was the Aston Martin livery. Now, for that weekend only, their livery is inspired by Aston Martin's From Rock to Racing Track campaign. Now, this is to highlight the journey from metals to minerals, from extraction all the way up to the high-performance components that make up the modern F1 cars. Now, Aston Martin applied a colour shifting coating to the car, which changes as the car drives the streets of Monaco. Stroll and Alonso's suits also carried a similar design along with their helmets as well. So the next team to release their suits was Williams, who marked their partnership with Claude, which is a part of their Pattern for Thought campaign. The team colours have been woven into a pixel-like pattern on the helmets, while the suits contained a clean black and white look. Now, Valtteri Bottas had a new helmet design for this weekend, which was designed by his partner Tiffany Cromwell. It was inspired by a badger which apparently visits Bottas every evening, and they even named the badger Nigel. The next special helmet was Pierre Gasly's helmet, and this was to celebrate the launch of his new hydration drink called Minded. He changed his usual blue themed helmet to a red design with white tones on the back of it. Now, finally, we have Kimi Antonelli's helmet, which was inspired by the Monegasque seafront, which included blue and white tones. The helmet included a rainbow Mercedes logo, blue stars on the side, and the number 12 are in the colours of the Italian flag. Okay, so now onto the actual track action. On Friday, we started off with FP1 and there was a lot of sliding into the corners, specifically the swimming pool section. We saw Isaac Hadjar crash exiting this section, and he lost the rear too late into the corner and caused a red flag. Now, there was a lot of impeding this session, with Charles Leclerc being investigated after the session for impeding. Then Arvid Lindbergh got in front of a few cars like Piastri and Colapinto. And then later on in the session, towards the end, Fernando Alonso had hit the front right on the wall at the braking zone just before the Nouvelle chicane and then caused another red flag. So finishing FP1, we had Charles Leclerc in first with a 1 minute 13.978. Then we had Lewis Hamilton in second, 2 tenths behind him, and then Max Verstappen in third, just 5 tenths behind. Then in FP2, we saw Lando Norris stop at the Nouvelle chicane and get out the car, which caused a virtual safety car. He'd lost all power and Zach Brown thought it was battery related. And then all was pretty much calm in this session, other than the fact that at the end, Sergio Perez's front right brake caught fire and he stopped at the top of turn 4 and caused a red flag. So topping off the time boards for that session was Lewis Hamilton with a 1 minute 13.026, with Charles Leclerc in second and Max Verstappen in third, both a tenth behind him. So moving on to the Saturday, we had FP3 and McLaren had to break curfew the night before to fix an electrical problem on Lando's car. So then Antonelli got out and got stuck behind traffic, while Ferrari went out earlier and kept finding the same problems as him. Problems continued over at Cadillac, as this time it was Valtteri Bottas whose front right brake was burning up. A few minutes after that, it was Franco Colapinto who spun at the hairpin and then hit the barrier before going into the pits to check the car. Ollie Behrman then also hit the barrier at Massenet, which forced him to stop his session as well. So then, topping the timesheets this time was Kimi Antonelli, who got a 1 minute 12.720, followed by Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton 3/10 behind him. So then we headed into qualifying, where Bortoletto's front left tyre hit the wall of the Nouvelle chicane and caused a red flag early on in Q1. So the rest of that session went well with these people getting knocked out. So we had, in 17th we had Ocon, 18th Perez, 19th Behrman, 20th Bottas, 21st Alonso, then last we had Stroll. Q2 was also pretty calm, with Sainz, Albon, Hülkenberg, Colapinto, Lindblad and Bortoletto getting knocked out as well. And then in Q3 at some point we had Kimi Antonelli in first and Max Verstappen in second, both separated by 1,000th of a second. And then with 2 minutes to go we had hometown hero Charles Leclerc take provisional pole, and that was until Kimi Antonelli took it back. Charles Leclerc also went out later than the rest at the end of the session, but then he hit the wall at the back and lost the rear of the car. So then taking pole we had Kimi Antonelli with a 1 minute 12.051, with Max Verstappen in second, Lewis Hamilton in third and Charles Leclerc in fourth. And now we had the race. So before we even got to the grid, we had to see Bortoletto start from the pit lane due to an issue with the car when he went onto the grid. So then the lights went out and Max Verstappen stalled his car and then had to retire due to some power unit related issues. In the early stages of the first few laps, we saw Perez being noted for being out of position on the grid. He got a drive-through penalty, and this was because he started in Bortoletto's grid box instead of his own. And then a lap later, Bottas had to retire the car as Cadillac needed to cool down the brakes. And then Isaac Hadjar and George Russell were fighting for 4th place, and then Hadjar said he found a problem with the engine braking and couldn't use first gear properly. He also said that the car was unusable and it had no power. So while this fight was happening, Ollie Behrman got called into the pits to retire the car, and George then pit and then Hadjar after him. Russell managed to undercut Hadjar after being stuck behind him for 34 laps. And then this next part is where all the chaos started. We have Lewis Hamilton, George Russell and Franco Colapinto noted for speeding in the pit lane and all gained 5-second penalties. So because Russell managed to undercut Hadjar, Norris was told to hold them both up so Piastri had the time to pit. But then on lap 45, Norris was told to come in and retire his car. And then Williams decided they liked that idea as well, as they told Albon to swap positions with Sainz so Albon could hold up the pack while Carlos could pit. And then we had another investigation, which was Lance Stroll, who was being looked at for exceeding track limits. He gained a 5-second penalty for this, but while the investigation was happening, he crashed into the last corner. So then the safety car brought out and Antonelli was told to pit, but he had already crossed the pit lane before they could make the call. Both Ferraris pit behind Antonelli for new softs, and then both Antonelli and Russell came in. However, when George was in the pits, he didn't serve his 5-second time penalty, so the FIA had given him a drive-through penalty. So then on the safety car restart, Charles Leclerc had crashed into the last corner where Stroll had crashed due to the track breaking up and marbles getting caught on the tyres. And then towards the end of the race, Gasly was noted for speeding in the pit lane again, so he gained another 5-second penalty for that. So after the 78 laps around the streets of Monte Carlo, the on-track podium was Antonelli, Hamilton and then Gasly. But with all the penalties added on, the podium was Antonelli, Hamilton, then Hadjar. So then post-race there were some investigations held, with the first one being Hadjar, and he was noted for changing parts of his car under the red flag. Nothing happened of this and he kept his 3rd place. And then Hülkenberg was noted for causing a collision with Sainz, and he got a 10-second time penalty added on to his after-race time after causing a collision with Sainz at the hairpin. Because Hülkenberg was dropped down, this moved Perez up into 10th place, but Perez also got investigated for speeding in the pit lane and he got a 5-second time penalty which moved Alonso up to 10th. This means that Aston Martin got their first point. And then the final thing that got noted was Franco Colapinto being investigated for colliding with Carlos Sainz. However, this had no further investigation. And that's all I have today. If you want to read more of our articles about F1 and the Monaco Grand Prix, you can head to our website, therookiereporters.com, and follow all of our socials on @therookiereporters.